So we got the basics of graphics, and now we're going to talk a little bit about the things that you can do with graphics, like moving things around the screen, perhaps using them in a game, any number of things. So we've made a basic drawing, and now we're going to see what we can do to animate some things. So if you remember to use graphics, you're going to type in from graphics import star. And I'm going to keep it relatively simple. I'm going to make a little circle guy and move him around the screen. So to create to create any graphics, you need a window to create them in. So I'm going to make a window. So this is 500 by 500, and that's in pixels. That's a pretty good size, 600 by 600, 600 by 400, 800 by 600. Those are all good sizes to make your graphics windows. So now I'm going to make a basic circle, and to do that is really easy. I'm going to actually put it towards the top of the screen instead of in the middle, and I'm going to give it a 60 radius. So if you remember, this is a variable called circle, and this is your function that creates the circle, and you need to give it a point. So I gave it 100, 100. And you need to give it a radius, so I made this circle 60. I also want to make my circle a different color. So you want to, that's called fill. And I'm going to make my circle yellow. And you'll see why in just a second. I'm going to then draw my circle. You have to draw everything onto the window. So now I have a circle. That's yellow. I've drawn it onto the window. Now I want to put some eyes on my circle, and there are a couple of different ways to do this. The easiest way is I'm just going to create an eye. I1 equals, an eye is a circle. I'm going to draw my eye on the circle so that when I move my circle around, it will go with the circle instead of getting left behind. You don't want your eyes left behind. So I'm going to make this circle, let's try, this may not work out. We have to, I do this by trial and error. And I want my eyes to be black, so I'm going to color my eye black. And I'm just going to draw one for right now, and then if that works out, I'll make another one. So let's draw that, and instead of drawing it onto the window, I'm going to draw it onto the circle I created. So that will make it look like an eyeball. So let's run this, and when I run it, it's going to ask me to save it. So I'm going to put this somewhere where I can find it. So let's try, let's call this animation. Animation. It's not. Here we go. Animation.py. Let's save it. And I have an extra parentheses. Alright, so it's hard to keep track of those sometimes. So let's run that again. Alright, so my eye is not in a very good place. It's kind of in the middle of my circle, but I like where my circle is. So let's try -10. There we go. And I still think this is a little too far over. So when you're looking at drawing onto a shape, 0, 0 is in the middle. So this would have been, -10. I actually think I might need to go further. Let's try -15. A little bit better. Maybe -20. Let's try that. And I find this to be a little too low, so I'm going to, that looks pretty good. So I have my circle, my first eye starts over here. So now what I can do, I want to draw my second eye. And there are other ways to do this using loops and stuff, but we're not going to get that complicated. So let's just make our second eye. And since my first eye is at -20, and I want it to be over on the other side, I'm going to add like 15 to that, or maybe we don't want it to be 0. Let's try +20. And the Y value should be the same, because unless you want your eyes to be crookedy, which is, you know, that's a design choice. And we still want this to be black, unless you want your eyes to be different colors, which is perfectly okay. And we're going to draw it onto the circle again and not onto the window. So let's see what that looks like. Okay, so I've got a circle with 2 eyes, and let's give him a mouth. And I'm going to be really simple. I'm going to make my mouth be a line. So let's see. We need to give our line 2 points. I'm going to try, let's try minus 20. I like that as an x value. Positive 20. So that's the first dot of my line. And then let's do positive 20. I'm going to make it just a straight line. And I want my line to be black as well. And I'm going to draw this onto the circle. All right, let's try that. There we go. So the other thing you could do, we could make this line a little thicker so that the mouth shows up a little bit more. So there we go. He's not a very happy camper, but that's okay. We're going to move him around the screen now. So there are a couple of different ways to move your little graphics around the screen. So now I want to move my circle. So there's circle.move, and the way that you do this is you give it an X and a Y, and those are the amounts by which the circle will move. So it will move just a little bit, 5 pixels. So if I run this, you barely see it move. Now, if I want this to move more, we can use a loop. And all a loop does is repeat an action as many times as you want. So I've written this loop here, for I in range 10, so that will do this 10 times. So I'm going to run this again. And it did it, but we just saw it sort of go really quickly. So if you want it to look a little bit different, you might want to put a wait in between. So then it looks like it's kind of moving across the screen, and that looks a little bit better. So that's one way to move. Now, if you want your, and that's actually the best way to move if you want to make it look semi-realistic. If you want just to move it from one place to another and you don't care if you see the movement, you can do a move too. So let's say I want my circle to move from one point on the screen to another. So this is 0, 0 up here, and this is 500, 500 down here. Let's say I want it to come down to this corner all of a sudden. Maybe I just want it to appear there. So I can use move to, and I'm going to move it to 400, 400, and let it just appear there. So that's just appearing there. I could have it pop all over the screen and do another move to, and let's say 250, 100. So again, it starts up at the top, moves a little bit in this loop over here, and then when it's done with that, and as you can see, we didn't actually see that, so this is why I like weights, so that you can see what happens between things. So it's going to move down to the bottom, wait for a half a second, and then move back up to the top. So that can be a fun effect. You can create some art effects that way. So those are the basics of moving your graphics around the screen. Basically, you use a loop, you use move, and you can use wait to make that move look more realistic. You can also use move to. On the Haiku page, I have put a link to all the graphics, so you're welcome to experiment with any of those. There's a lot that you can do. But you can also keep it simple and still create something really interesting just by making your shapes move across the screen in a fairly realistic way. So have fun!